Welcome to another episode of Cannabiz Conversations. I am your lucky and grateful host, Sean Welsh. Today, I am joined by, well, I call it the attorney of all things cannabis because that's how I take it. But New York's finest cannabis attorney, Mr. Jeffrey Hoffman. Jeffrey, how are you tonight, man?
I'm outstanding. Taking a break. We had a deadline here in New York last Friday, so all the attorneys finally got to sleep some this week.
That is a bit, and that deadline is just an overview. What was that on?
Right. So New York is got its first retail application period that is pretty much open to everyone, and they bifurcated it. So the first half was basically if you were applying for a location for a retail establishment, they did what they called a non-provisional license, which allowed you to jump the gun a bit. They're going to start priming those for opening, hopefully at some point early next year would be my guess. And then there's another deadline on December 18th, which is basically for all of the other licenses that are available in this application period, plus the folks that will apply for retail without a location.
Retail without a location, so mobile?
Well, no, it's a provisional license. So let's Vermont did this pretty successfully, and New York thought this was a good idea as well. So New York has one of the most progressive implementations of a cannabis law of anywhere ever. In fact, it's probably the most equitable implementation of a law anywhere ever. They really are focusing on trying to get the folks that never get the opportunities here some opportunities. And so just the real question there is really how do you get that to folks, and usually who has real estate, folks that have money, and who usually has applications that look better, right? Folks that have money and the resources to be able to do these types of things. So in going both a non-provisional, which is with a location, and provisional, which is without locations, you get both the people that are kind of ready to go in the industry, the people that already have their location, may even have built it out some and are kind of really ready to rock and roll. The state really needs stores open very badly. But it also gives you that opportunity to give folks that may not have had a location. And you think about it, if you are a potential equity applicant and you go to a landlord in New York, and especially in New York City, what are your odds of being able to get a lease? Probably low, probably zero, right? But if you go to them with a provisional license from the regulator here in New York and say, look, I'm a serious applicant. The state's already vetted me to some extent. They've given me this provisional license, which is basically they say, I'm in the process. I need next to present them with a location. The way I do that is by signing a lease with you, Mr. Landlord. So it's kind of an initial vetting bar that hopefully will allow equity applicants to be able to have more of a role and more play in the marketplace.
That's awesome. And as it relates to the state, I'm not, obviously all the states have different rules. I grew up in the Colorado cannabis industry as far as that goes. And at the time of medical, it was different than the way it is now, where it's basically seed to sale all within a same area, right? All pretty much regulated by the government on each scan, et cetera. Is that the same way it is here, or is it more of a storefront plus a growing facility? Are those different applications in your world?
So what we kind of talk about there is the tiering of the licensing, right? So every state does this a little bit differently. And the real fundamental question is whether or not the operators in the state can be vertically integrated. So in some states, they allow vertical integration. That means the same business entity can cultivate, process, and then sell at retail. And then other states limit that. And they do much more like an alcohol model, where there's a supply tier and a retail tier. So think about it for a second. How many Budweiser bars do you see when you go out? Where are you right now?
I'm in Wisconsin. We got lots of bars.
You got a lot of bars. How many of them are Budweiser branded bars owned by Budweiser? I'll tell you exactly zero.
The only thing you see branded is the Budweiser truck taking all the Budweisers to all the Budweiser beers.
That's the distributor, which is on the supply side, right? Yeah. So again, this borrows a very similar model to alcohol, where at retail, you have one tier of vendors, and at supply, cultivating in the cannabis world, cultivating, processing, and distributing, you have a different tier of players, right? And never the two shall meet except for unique situations. So this is in New York. Again, other states allow a lot of vertical integration. Here in New York, the medical providers are vertically integrated, and they are going to be able to open a couple of adult use retail stores each. What a lot of the rest of the world calls recreational, we call adult use here in New York. And then the micro business license is also allowed to be fully vertically integrated. but it's a micro, so they're limited in their volume and what all they can do. But otherwise, if you're a retailer, you can't be growing and all these other types of things. That is a big distinction. It's not unlike Washington. You're kind of had quoted earlier the Colorado model. I think New York has taken most of what it is doing from the Washington state model. One of the things that our regulator here really liked about Washington state is the raw number of SKUs that they found on the shelves of the stores. Now, we can argue all we want about whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. But they like that. And in their minds, that in some way bodes a more equitable industry if there's the potential for hundreds and hundreds of brands to potentially be on the shelves. And I think that's not unfounded. It just then creates other challenges for the industry, which we probably don't have nearly enough time to go into.
Yeah, probably not. But I like the way you put that together like that, because as someone who's been in that model and seen it, when you explain it the way you just did it, I think, the New York model to, let's say, the Colorado model that I grew up in, because it allows people to be great at something, right? And I don't think you find many businesses just in life in general that do everything from front to back great. And I think that separating them gives us the ability to have more people involved. And the Washington SKU thing, I agree. I think that I think it proves consumer intent, that the consumer wants to see all of these. They want opportunity, and let other people come into it who might make tinctures or edibles or whatever and still be able to do that. So I agree. I really like that. So, but we've already kind of jumped ahead, but tell me, how did you become a cannabis lawyer, Jeffrey? Were you already a lawyer and had passion for the plant? What is your origin story as it relates to the cannabis plant?
Yeah. So as I like to say, I've been getting high since Reagan.
Okay.
Started getting high in high school. I remember the first time they took me out, some of the people that were already kind of, as Jimi Hendrix would say, "Are you experienced?" He was talking about a different substance, but you know my point. They were like, "Look, we're going to take you out here in the woods with us, and this first time you go, you're going to be like, why am I smoking this and hacking up a lung for nothing?" Because most people that I've talked to don't get high the first time they got high. I guess
right.
It's a type of setting of your body getting used to the receptors having a slightly different cannabinoid-like substance bind to them or whatever. I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I have
not a scientist. No, I brought you on because you're a lawyer, right? For sure.
That's it. That's 100%. But who knows? I mean, it's got to be something, right? Nobody gets high the first time, right? Why is that? I don't know.
I don't know.
But
Can't explain it.
We need some now that cannabis is getting legal. Once it's federally legal, we need somebody to do some research on that. Anyway, so they took me out and were like, "You're not gonna, but you'll thank us the next time."
Okay.
And boy, am I ever now, right? So, I've been getting high since then, and I always never understood. I know always never. I never understood. Cannabis has been with humans as long as there's been humans, except in my lifetime, right? And only in my lifetime, I was born in 1970. The Controlled Substances Act was passed by Congress in 1970. So, I mean, my lifetime, cannabis has been separated from humanity. So I've always thought, like, this is idiotic, and what are we doing? And certainly putting people in jail for this is among the dumbest things we as a society have ever done. So I've always was interested in the justice issues. There wasn't a whole lot you could do. I mean, it was just say no in the Reagan era. Even Clinton was, I didn't inhale. That's my life's goal now at this point, I guess, is to be the guy that gets him to inhale, but whatever. So I'd always been thinking about these issues, and there's some great video. I think the oldest video of me is from like 2013, talking about expungement. This was right after Colorado and Washington legalized, and a few other states were talking about it, and Rhode Island was talking about it, and also was kind of one of the early ones that I kind of listened. I mean, everybody always kind of talks about it like they were actually proposing, hey, when we pass this, we're also going to expunge certain crimes. If whatever we're going to make, if you were convicted of whatever we're now going to make legal in the past, we clear it. And I was like, hallelujah. There was this eureka video moment for me. But still, New York did nothing. So I went off and was the hot dog king in New York City for a while. And we can talk about that more if you want later. And then finally, New York legalized. And I remember the discussion with my mom. The hot dog company had actually gotten destroyed by COVID. And it was kind of like, well, what was I going to do next? Right. And I was talking to my mom, and I was like, New York just legalized. And I've been doing this cannabis thing my whole life. I'm going to do this 100% and see what happens. And it's, you kind of said it at the beginning, and I'm very honored and respectful of what you said at the beginning. I mean, it's really been pretty incredible, right? This is not what I thought, certainly what I would hope happened, but not what I thought would happen, right? And so that's
But,
how we got.
but Jeffrey, you've been an attorney, but by trade previous to this, though, right? Like you didn't just become an attorney after COVID.
No. So I mean, I've been an attorney for 25 years, but I never really practiced as an attorney. I mean, earlier on in my career, I ran a little web development company, as I just mentioned, for people that live in New York City and remember all those bright yellow Nathan's famous hot dog carts all over the city. I was a partner in that business. And yeah, I mean, I did some legal work for it, but no one would have looked at me and said, "Oh, you're an attorney." I think today people look at me and say, "You're an attorney, dude."
Yeah. What a way to make a transition, though, right? I mean, this is within the last 5 years, or even less than that, 3 years, right? I mean, since COVID, you've become this, this stature, this person in the industry who's a voice of reason, someone who comes out. The expungement's a huge thing for me. I remember being in Colorado thinking to myself, this is fine and all, but where's the help? Where are the people who shouldn't be in jail for what we've done? You're a New York Yankees fan, so clearly a baseball guy. I feel the same way about Pete Rose. If you're going to let people gamble on their phones about baseball, put this dude in the Hall of Fame. This is ridiculous. This has gone on long enough, right?
So I do think the question is, was he, and I don't even remember, was he betting on his teams?
He bet on his own team, but he bet on him to win. I mean, to win. It's not like he even bet on him to lose.
Yeah, I got you. I'd love to have that debate with you. I agree. I think the bet should be you can't bet on your own sport. You can bet on any other sport you want, but you get it. Just in your own sport, you actually have a way to influence what's going on, right?
Yeah, but you're right. But these guys in football, right? They just got busted for gambling within their own sport, and they get a year's suspension. Now, football is not baseball, but come on.
I agree. I mean, look, we could have a whole show about this.
You can lose your kid's college fund by clicking on your cell phone now. It's just, I think we need to take it a little more seriously.
I mean, you don't have to be sports betting. You can be doing poker or blackjack or anything else that way. It doesn't.
And it all came together in the legal states. All right, so sorry, back on track here with the expungement. Is that a huge part?
I loved it. Yeah.
Is that a huge part of the New York legislation, the expungement? Is that a big part of what you look for, they look for as part of social justice?
There's a whole section about it. And here's the great part. The judges in the conservative parts of the state are doing it wrong. In fact, they're just doing whatever the hell they want to do. And we have appeals right now going to Albany related to how they're doing it wrong. Like if you're a lawyer and you read what the statute tells you to do, there's step 1, step 2, and step 3. The judges in the conservative parts of the state are going right to step 2 and not even bothering with step 3, just ignoring step 1 entirely, which is actually the most important step. So it's a little mind-boggling, but we're going to get the appeals courts to fix that.
So is that something that, do you know this off the top? You might not. How many states we're in 24 states now. How many of them have the expungement piece? So
a lot do. New York's is by far the most aggressive. And just I'll tune in that to you right now. Under a certain level of cannabis offense, it is expunged automatically. And in fact, it's already had to have happened. It had to have happened by the end of March earlier this year. And so I encourage everyone to get their certificate of disposition if they were ever convicted of a cannabis offense in New York, just to make sure this has been done. But everyone with basically any non-type of commercial possession charge, right? Like you had a dime bag or a quarter bag, right? Or, you got caught smoking on the corner or whatever. All of those are automatically expunged. The ones that are higher level, like, possession with intent to distribute and like serious weight and all this kind of stuff, those you actually have to file a motion in the court where you were originally convicted to get that expunged. And that is the case that I was referring to before, that there's a process, you file some paperwork and there's steps, and just the judges in the conservative parts of the state are just like, how can I read what the statute says to get to the result I want, which is you get nothing and like it? How can I figure out? And so it's like, okay, I don't do step 1. I just pretend step 1 isn't even there. I do step 2. I do it incorrectly. And then I skip step 3. I admit step 3 is there, but I skip it. And so it's just, I don't know,
I mean, these are judges. These are people that were elected to their position. Is that correct? Is that fair to say?
In New York, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are we talking about exactly? I mean, again, I think people need to understand that from a bigger level, that expungement has got to be a huge part of it. Jeffrey, if we go down the federal ruling, where do you stand as a state's attorney on the idea of a federal? Do you think it only gums it up? Do you think the state should work through it? What is your thought there?
I think it's given how the procedural nature of our government, it's impossible for there to be legalization. And I'll unpack that for you if you want, or we can go to other. I mean, I'd love to unpack it. It's just we could really.
I mean, look, like this is our time together. Spend it. Right. You have passion for the topic. Let's unpack it.
So there's exactly one party in our country, and look, I don't care what anybody's politics is, so don't send any hate mail. There's exactly one party in our country that moves cannabis legislation. There are now 3 parties in our country. If anybody's really paying attention, there are actually 3 parties in our country. There is a liberal party, which I guess you would call the Democratic Party, and there is a substantially Republican, I guess, party that has a what you might historically call the country club Republican element, the pre-Reagan element, and what I would call the Trump element, right? Which are really 2 parties. And, you know, the one has taken over the House recently. And only the Democratic Party of those 3 moves cannabis legislation, right? Like, I mean, I guess Oklahoma did something for medical and they went insane, and we don't even have to talk about Oklahoma. And yes, some of these red states did do medical only after being beaten about the head and neck from their own Republican caucus members who had cancer or who had family members who had cancer or other wasting diseases, and finally said to them, hey folks, like, you're really causing, you know, people you forget the people you hate, but the people you love, you're actually causing real harm to. So let's actually do these things. And that's the only time they ever do it. So you have to have, at least as our country's procedural rules are currently in effect, and as we're currently composed from the voting that we do here, you would have to have you'd have to have the Democrats have the presidency, the House, and the Senate. And oh, by the way, that's not even good enough, because they had that under the first 2 years of Biden, and they couldn't even get safer banking or any of the other stuff, much less legalization passed, right? So you can't even do it then. You actually need a a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, which is 60 votes, which each party has actually had in vaguely recent memory. The Republican Party had it briefly under George Bush. That's where Bush was president. They had the House where you just need 1 vote majority, and they had 60 votes in the Senate. And similarly, very early under Obama, the Democrats had Obama. They had the House by more than 1 vote, but you only need 1 vote in the House, and they had the Senate by 60. And if you remember, they couldn't get Obamacare passed. They had to do it later via reconciliation, even with 60. So if you couldn't get Obamacare passed, how the hell are you going to get cannabis legalized with a bare 60 majority, which is what you would need to get through a filibuster? So until we change the Constitution, which there's even less chance of happening, and deal with how we do things procedurally, until one of the parties, so your most likely path here actually is that one of the party blows up the filibuster rules. And just for those of you not keeping score at home, this is not something in the Constitution. This is not something in a statute anywhere. This is a rule of the Senate. And basically, it's a courtesy rule by the majority saying, hey, minority, except for certain exceptions, and by and large, in these days, we're getting more and more exceptions, and we can go into that separately. Except for certain exceptions, you're going to get to stop legislation. If we can't get 60 votes, we're not going to be able to bring it up to the floor. And that's basically the filibuster rule. It used to be you had to stand on the floor and read from the phone book. And like, for those of you that are my age and remember civics, this is where literally people would get up on the podium there in the House or the Senate and read from the phone book. But now the way it works is basically if you got to get to these 60 votes, except for things like I said, reconciliation. If it's a tax or finance matter, it seems they can do it. And then I might be wrong about that, but the reconciliation process generally has to do with dealing with the budget. And also more and more, it's about judges. You may remember the Democrats, when Obama was president, were upset that the Republicans in the Senate were blocking his judges. So they said, okay, for the judges, no more only the lower court judges, no more filibuster. Supreme Court, you can still filibuster. And then sure enough, when the Republicans got in under Trump this last time and they couldn't push through all the judges Trump wanted, they said, we're now going to do no filibuster for Supreme Court judges. So we're slowly but surely whittling away at this Senate filibuster rule. And I do think one of the parties will eventually get rid of it entirely, and we'll go back to the Senate being the way it used to be, of a majority, but you can just stand up there forever and do whatever you want. And it'll take something like that before cannabis can become legal. There you go.
Woo! Baby, that is what I like to hear. That is sound reasoning behind the idea. Look, I think it's an uphill battle. I always have. I live in a I live in a blue state, at least publicly, but for its
You don't.
majority, the way the House and Senate run, it is a red state. And so with it, we are in an island. We are in a prohibition island that no one seems to really care about, except for Melissa Agar, who's doing unbelievable work here in Wisconsin, trying to pass everything she does. I love,
Sir, we love you and we care about you. It's in your hands. Get the youngins out to vote and you win every issue you want. Just your youngins don't, nobody's youngins vote. I mean, get the kids out to vote and you'll win every election until the end of time. Good luck.
We've got to do more of it. It's got to come out. And it's crazy how in our state, I mean, I've been here for a decade, how I've seen it go where it's, you'll have a Democratic governor, but all of a sudden all of the Senate seats go to red. And you're like, well, did you guys just walk in and vote for the governor and leave? Is that what you guys did? Like, you're killing me. Like, let's get,
Split tickets.
Get down the line here, Yeah.
Split tickets.
That's how it goes. But
nothing wrong with a split ticket. I just, I'm telling you, the problem is your youngins don't vote. You'd win every election if your youngins voted.
Well, I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna do my part for sure. When you look at the overarching part of that, you obviously given me the reason that federal won't happen. With these states like let's take Wisconsin for an example, Jeffrey. What do you think it's going to take for this state to change its mind now that it's on Prohibition Island? Minnesota is now legal. What is your thought here about what it's going to take to finally push a state like this over the top? Because every side wants to be right. Every time Republicans write something, Democrats don't like it. Every time Democrats write something, Republicans don't like it. The governor is a wet noodle who won't make a decision to just do something. What do we do now?
I'm guessing that Wisconsin is not there's a term for it, and I can't remember the term for it. Roughly half the states are where the people can put a measure on the ballot, and half the states you can't. So New York is a can't state, right? Colorado was a can state. The people collected signatures, and the thing got on the ballot. New York, we couldn't do that. It was entirely up to the legislature. My guess, since Wisconsin has not had this, have they had this on the ballot or no? Am I misremembering?
I have only the question.
They voted. Yeah.
Only the question has been asked. It has never been part of a ballot measure. Like the question is like almost like a reference sheet almost. It was never an actual ballot issue. Not that I could recall. I'd have to ask Melissa.
I really only pay attention to New York.
I get that.
That's where I am. But so I don't remember the history in Wisconsin. So I don't remember if you guys can put it on the ballot. So if you can, you do that and you do a good bill, right? And you don't do the discussion in the terms of we want to all get high. You do it in the terms of let's go and do a study. Like there was a great one. What was the busiest dispensary in Massachusetts when Massachusetts legalized?
Oh, I forget those guys.
It's the one in Great Barrington, I believe, that is right next to New York.
I cannot remember the name of that.
Everybody went across the border from New York to shop there, right? Everybody. And that's what we have here, but we have it now. It's like a police trap. Now I got it. So what you need to do is commission. This is why you need lobbyists. You need resources because you do have to do something. You go and do a study. How many driver's licenses get rung up at the border dispensaries in your border states, right? In a given month, pick the busiest month of the year for cannabis, probably one of the summer months for you guys, and do the research, right?
Yeah, the state had a research run about $200 million between all the borders thus far over an 18-month period. And the worst part about that is that's a tax revenue discussion where it has nothing to do with the actual in-state small businesses, number of people.
I got it. So when was that study through?
That was, I believe they released it last summer. So I think it was the summer previous to that.
Okay, so almost 2 years ago, coming up on 2 years ago, right? Let's call it 18 months. Lots happened in those 18 months, hadn't it?
Minnesota's gone legal. So that's a whole nother part of the district that no one's accounting for now.
Hello. Ohio's about to. And I know you guys don't quite border them, but I mean, you're really going to be on an island.
It's crazy to think how it continues to exist. But as to your point, there has to be.
Crazy. There has to be. It's not crazy at all.
It's not.
It's not at all. It's just, this is how we do things, right? We're not in a dictatorship and we don't have home rule, right? We're in this weird Confederacy of dunces, go look it up. It's a title of a book if you're interested. And it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I love that saying of words. but we're in this weird amalgam of states and state rights and federalism and this and that and the other thing. And, it's a freak show.
What would you make the number one thing that a state that was about to legalize had to do? What has to be on their bill? What has to be the most important thing as far as you're concerned?
Like that they've actually done and that the market has played, or that they ought to do, which would make their market unbelievably successful?
I would like to hear both if you have the time. But I know we're coming up on a time for you, my friend. I'm about 2 minutes out.
We can do what we need to do here.
Okay.
So as far as stuff that would actually happen, and I mean, this could actually happen, but won't. And the other is could actually really happen, but won't. The other is my fantasy, and of course it won't, right? All right. Okay. So could really happen and won't would be things like do tax holidays early in the market. Like, I know you have a tax bill on your market, and this is particularly important, I think, for states that have large illicit markets like California and New York did. Have a tax holiday at the beginning. You're not going to get a lot of tax revenue when you only have a few stores as you're really spooling stuff up, and give those first stores a real good fighting chance, not extra burden of taxes, or maybe 50% on, do something, right? Like, give them an additional weapon to fight the illicit stores, right? Your best way, everybody's talking about everything with illicit stores, especially because of New York now. I mean, yes, you do need enforcement, and the enforcement should be on the landlords, and we can go off on that tangent if you want separately. But you really want to make them successful, let them open, make them competitive price-wise, right? That's the way they're really good. And they don't have to be less, and they don't even have to be equal. Get the regulated stores within earshot of the illicit stores, and people will go to the illicit stores that don't love the illicit stores. I mean, you got a plug you've been shopping with for 20 years. I mean, okay, you're not going to a regulated store. But as far as the consumer that's doesn't even know here in New York, people think the illegal stores are legal stores, right?
It's a huge problem. It's crazy. I was talking with my buddy Aaron Raskin on this very show about this very problem, where people just walk in and people are like, oh, cool, I can buy cannabis. And you have no idea that you're not actually at a legal dispensary. What's the fix, Jeffrey?
Well, no. So I mean, the fix is different than what I think they ought to be you asked me what should their law should be, and now you see you've got me off on some other question for the fix. Which thing do you want me to tell me? We'll do it all, right? The fix for that is you go after the landlords. Well, no, if you want to address the illicit market, 3 things. Most important is open, regulated stores. And New York has screwed that up because every time we put out a new set of regs, people sue and we get injunctions of the licensees under those regs being able to open their stores. You got 400 and something licensees right now in New York that can't open because of an injunction, because our regulator, as much as I do love them, they are awesome people. They just didn't quite match up the regulations to the law. So somebody was able to sue and get an injunction. People sue all the time. People do not sue all the time and get injunctions. You cannot have it so that your regulations easily get injunctions issued against them. You'll never open your market. All right. So number 1, open regulated stores. Number 2, help the regulated stores that do open delight their customers. Help them learn about branding and merchandising and all of these types of things, retailing, right? Help them delight their customers. 3, yes, I know everybody's going to get upset in the fraction of the world here that hates me about the enforcement, but yes, you've got to enforce. There's a state liquor authority in every state. Here in New York, if you opened an illegal bar or a legal store, you would be shut down in 5 minutes and you would go to jail. Yes. I'm not even asking for that here. What I'm asking for in New York is you find the landlord that has the building. You say, Mr. Landlord, this business is operating illegally. Get them out. You have 30 days. If they're not out in 30 days, it's a $100,000 fine. If they're not out 30 days later, we take your building. Take your building. I'm going to run for mayor, and my campaign is going to be, I'm taking all the illicit stores, I'm taking the buildings, I'll put a legal store on the first floor, and I'll turn the rest of the building into affordable housing. I will win in a landslide, okay? So that's what needs to be done on that front. Back to the ideas about what they ought to do and should do. So we already said open more stores, tax holiday, really help them learn how to delight their customers. Here's what they should have done, and it's always easy to Monday morning quarterback, and there never
is this the fantasy of what you wish would be done, or this is what they should have done?
This is not a fantasy. This is the hallucination. The should done and can still do is everything I just said.
Okay.
Everything I just said is very doable. In fact, I was sitting with the sheriff of New York at an event just this weekend, and he literally said we're starting to go after the landlords. So they are doing those things are doable, and they're just way too late, way too little, way too slow, right?
All right.
Quicker,
All right. But
faster,
what's
and
the hallucination of what could happen?
the hallucination. All right. So this is how you would have done it if you just started thinking about it this way. All right. New York City was $1 billion cannabis industry before they legalized cannabis, right? Maybe multi-billion, but certainly $1 billion industry. And the key to New York's cannabis industry was its delivery mechanism. I mean, yes, there's people here growing it indoors. Yes, people are growing it outdoor, upstate. Let's be real. If we did this as federal, like if we could move the cannabis around the country, all of the cannabis would be grown in Northern California and Oregon, and the volume cannabis would be grown in the American. The stuff that you just want to turn into distillate would be grown in the American South, where you just plow fields, outdoors, and just grow tons and tons and tons and put it in a distillate machine, and off it goes. And the smokable flower is going to come from California and Oregon. New York has the culture and this delivery mechanism to 9 million people that live here. You would have gone to the illicit market, and look, people know who the players are. They just do, right? Even the people even the regulator know who the players are in the illicit. It's this weird kind of thing, right? And you would go to the illicit market and say, the delivery mechanism that already existed in New York, we're not going to try to reinvent the wheel. We're going to create some rules, and you're going to follow these rules. And when you do not follow the rules, we are going to get draconian. But we're going to make some rules. You're going to work with us to make the rules. There's some that are non-negotiable, but we're going to work with you on the other ones. Then you're going to follow the rules, and we're going to make so much money your head's going to spin. Because we're going to take what you're doing now and we're going to make it 100% legal. We're just going to switch it. We're going to take you out of your supply, your growers and your processors and your distributors. We're going to replace that part of this. And I get a lot of the supply chain, it's connected. You're just going to connect, and you're going to help those people come in as well, right? You're going to have everybody come in as well. And it's not to say that there won't be opportunity for other people. But New York had two really big goals here. One, legalize cannabis and have an industry that the state's going to tax. And two, which really is one for me, the more important one, is this equity thing. Are you kidding me? The most equitable thing that would have ever been done on planet Earth would be to hand the delivery component to the consumer of this industry to the equity, to the folks. Who else is equity? The folks that are already in that industry that you are already arresting and incarcerating for doing this. So how do you now, in a rational way, do that is sane and is not hypocritical? Like, now we're going to take this industry and we're going to make all the money, and we know we've arrested you and incarcerated you before, but now we're just going to take it and we're going to make. You could have done that, and you would have immediately had an unbelievable infrastructure to get cannabis to the people. I then would have taken the ROs, the medical operators that are already operating, and allowed them, remember, they're vertical. I would have allowed them to come into the market in the adult use side, cultivating, processing, all of it, retailing, but they had to then partner with equity. So the business was going to start 80-20, you and the equity person, and their 20% is non-dilutable. That's from go, and then money gets put in and you get diluted, the equity person doesn't. You see what I'm saying? And
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That is the fairest startup incubator I've ever heard of in my life. From a perspective of already have the infrastructure, I already do everything. So if I work with you as a second storefront, that I can move my cannabis from to your storefront, and we can work on you becoming 100% store owner of that storefront while I get made whole in the process. Who doesn't sign up for that? Not
made whole, made profitable. I'm not a communist, right? I believe.
No, for sure. Yeah, this isn't the Red Cross, right? That's not what I'm talking about.
But I'm just simply saying our language matters. And
you're right. I did say whole, which for me as an investor in the space, being made whole would be almost enough for me. I don't need to make a bunch of money on it, but yeah, I appreciate your point.
Me. I mean, the reason why these things get shut down so often and so attacked and so sued is because industry, it feels impinged upon. We all have to win. Equity, I mean, look at what Illinois, Illinois took 2 years to go nowhere with equity. So how is it equity winning when we stand up for these high ideals and it never happens? How about we do things that can actually happen and actually work. And wow, the people that we're trying to target for help here and benefit here actually get some benefit, as opposed to the zero that they always get everywhere else. That's what I'm saying.
It's unbelievable. And now I realize why it's a hallucination, because it makes so much sense. It is so realistic to any sort of situation. I mean, look at what's happening already. I give credit to Minnesota, right? They legalized it immediately. They're like, look, we've already allowed the Native Americans to grow, so they have a dispensary. You're free to go see them if you want now. At least there was an option.
That's different. You know? Hold on. That's totally different.
Different?
So, you want to?
Okay.
Okay. So it's up to Minnesota, however they did it, and however the Indians liked it or didn't. So the sue them, everything. The tribal nations are not in the United States of America, right?
Right.
They are a sovereign nation. That's why that says that. So we have the Shinnecock here in New York. They have dispensaries and cultivation facilities out at the end of Long Island. There's a tribal nation up by the Canadian border. There's another one out in Buffalo that's not nearly as far along. They are their own independent nations. They can do whatever they want, right? So that's just a little bit of a different scene. And I don't know what exactly you were referencing in Minnesota, but you know, I get Minnesota could hem and haw, but like technically,
no, I guess Minnesota is allowing their residents without hassle to, now that the state is legalized but doesn't have growers put together, you can go grow, you can go buy from people who've already been growing it, as I understand it from my friends there.
They're not putting cops on the border between the tribal, like on the road, on the highway. Okay. That is good.
We're a state that's legalized, but we don't have anything for you to buy. So don't go to Wisconsin. Give it to our friends here on the grounds, and we'll leave you alone.
So that's certainly good.
Yeah.
There was nothing they could have done to prevent the tribes from doing it. But you're right. In a draconian state, you could set up checkpoints at every road as they come out of the tribal nation.
And that's what I wonder, if this state will take that to the next level, because we have our casinos, we have our tribal land. It's a big part of what goes on here in Wisconsin. I wonder if they watch something like that and say, well, no one can stop us except for that part of the police. It's always, because I know North Carolina tribes are starting to discuss it as something they're trying to get a part of because of it as well. So you're right, Jeffrey, because they're not a part of the United States, it allows them to operate differently. So it's going to be a murky water, I think, for some of the red states that can't get out of their own way, for sure.
The really interesting part, I'm less concerned about, can New Yorkers go onto Shinnecock land and purchase there. The more interesting question is, can the Shinnecock deliver from their land into the state of New York? And that is the truly fascinating legal question. We're not even going to delve into that, but it's just, there's all kinds of great stuff.
I mean, the answer should be absolutely yes. They should have their own brand they can put on shelves. I don't know why this seems any different to me as part of an equitable discussion.
Because the law says, in order for them to operate in New York, there has to be a compact between them and the state. And
there's not, because that's not part of the state.
Well, no. There could be. It's up to the board here to make one. It's just they haven't made one yet. So it's just it's a fascinating scene.
Wow. Right? I didn't even realize that angle of it. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. You've been more than gracious with your time. Leave me with your thoughts as it relates to all things scheduling, right? I'm hearing a big deal. This is how we get to not worry about legalizations. We just find our way into scheduling.
False flag. False
criminalizing this verbiage.
False flag.
Words
False
matter,
flag.
Jeffrey. Clear it up for us.
False flag. All right, so it's not reschedule. It's not even deschedule. It's unschedule. And people ask me what's the difference between deschedule and unschedule? And my answer is the emphasis. So look, rescheduling does solve some of your problems. Your banking problems probably go, because rescheduling makes it like steroids, right? It makes it like drugs that are in that schedule of drug. You get doctors got to prescribe it in the whole thing, right?
Okay.
And so you can take credit cards in theory for that. You can, know 280E, you know what 280E is, or do I need to unpack that?
No, you're good. We're good on the healthcare forms. You're good.
Well, no, 280E is you can't write off. Yeah, tax forms, not healthcare. Right.
I was just having a healthcare discussion with someone. I'm like, stop with the form numbers.
Right. But anyway, yes, this is where you can't write off anything but cost of goods sold. Anyway, so you perhaps get rid of some of those issues, but now, like, are all your dispensaries going to have to become pharmacies?
How's that going to work?
Is every dispensary going to have to now be regulated like a pharmacy?
I see there's already staffing problems in my local Walgreens. I don't know how that's supposed to work, Jeffrey.
So I'm just saying, that's where you are with Schedule 3. You're basically now a regulated pharmaceutical drug.
which according to some would push out the legacy grower if you went Schedule 3. Do you agree with this?
I think it throws out everybody, right?
Everybody.
I mean,
because it becomes big pharma, all the shit none of us like and want to deal with.
Right.
So what's the answer? Unschedule. What does that mean? Just forget it was there, put it under booze. What do you mean? Where does that fall? Unschedule.
So unschedule is okay. I mean, it's the same as deschedule, right? Just get it out of there. It's no longer in the Controlled Substances Act. Cannabis is no longer part of the Controlled Substances Act. That's your answer for that. But again, our real answer is legalization, right? This is not a just removal of it from everything. In fact, I would rather it be not just removed, but like put into law. Like if anybody remembers our history, and I get this is not really applicable, and you know, people will shame me as a lawyer for saying this, but as for conflating it, but I'm not conflating it. Is, you know, our founding fathers, you had to grow hemp because they needed the rope, you know, for the war effort and everything they had going. I mean, like literally, it was a requirement. You had to grow hemp, right?
Yeah, Jeffrey, there are some guys on LinkedIn throwing up some old school documents about this, man, about like the old like Kentucky road of hemp and how it was, you know, you're talking 1927, I think the document was from. It was like, thank you for your service. Do you want to make the rope yourself? Do you want to send it to the Boston shipyard? Well, we'll make the rope. Either way, we appreciate your effort.
I'm going back to 1782. Right.
I mean, right. That's the right.
20th century. I'm talking founding fathers. Everybody, let's got to grow hemp. And so let's get back to that. What do I want? I want everyone over the age of 21 in the United States of America has to cultivate cannabis. If you don't, it's $100 fine on your 1040 the next April. That's it. Simple.
Everyone has to be involved.
And the $100 fine goes to the Medical Cannabis Fund for people that can't afford their medical cannabis. And if you want to cultivate instead, but don't want to smoke what you cultivate, bring it down to the medical cannabis facility and donate it.
Hey, my wife and I were girls in Colorado. We gave away more than 60% of ours to people who couldn't afford it, who had parents, family members with cancer. It was the biggest passion project of my life. I never spent so much time trying to give back to a community of people that I thought could use it the most with a medication I think was better than anything they could find anywhere else. So
here you go. That's it.
100%, man. Look, I don't know if you're joking about the mayor thing, and I don't even live in New York, but I'm going to find a way to make a vote happen. So if you do that, you just let me know and we'll get everyone we know behind it. I absolutely love it, man. Jeffrey, man, you've been so great with your time. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate you doing it. We're definitely going to have you on the show again. You're incredible energy with a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for sharing it with everybody.
Rock and roll. Send me a link when it's up.
All right, man, we'll do it. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Remember, it is the duty of this show, it's the duty of all of us involved to do our very best to elevate this plant to its rightful place in society. It is our show's goal. We hope you'll join us in it. Thanks a lot and have a great week.